managing partner of Surana International Attorneys, to escort our chief guest for the day, Ms. Apurva IAS, Managing Director, Tansitco, to also invite Ms. Lauren Lovelace, Public Affairs Officer at U.S. Consulate General, Chennai, Ms. Jennifer Iannolo, to the dais, please. I now request Dr. Vinod Surana to formally welcome the members and address us, please.
Chief guest of today's program, Madam Apurva from the Indian Administrative Service and the Managing Director of Tansitco, Ms. Lauren Lovelace, Public Affairs Officer of the U.S. Consulate at Chennai, Ms. Jennifer Iannolo, the founder of the Concordia Project, distinguished ladies, invitees, and gentlemen. My humble greetings and a very warm welcome to all of you for today's interactive panel discussion on women in business. How to have it all. Today's subject is of great importance and personal interests me and interest for Association and Government. And I would like to share a few personal experiences in my life and some thoughts as part of my welcome remarks. The writings of a great freedom fighter who lived just 2 kilometers from where we are today, Subramania Bharati. He lived in Triplicate about 100 years ago, has had a great significant impression on my mind as a student. Through his writings and poems, he visualized a modern Indian woman at the vanguard of society. He was of the strong opinion that the world will prosper in knowledge, intellect, and economically if both men and women were being equals. I believe this can be achieved by tackling the existing prejudices in society that are mainly born out of insecurity, inferiority, or sometimes the superiority complex, which is widely present. And I believe to achieve this, proper communication is required through lessons, stories, and other mediums from the primary school level. And I tell you why. I give you a personal example. As I grew up, I saw both my parents. They are lawyers, and they played an equal role in building the family and the law firm. In fact, I would say my mother played a more difficult role because she had to manage the house and her practice, go to court, manage the office. So when, as children, we see our mothers being treated with respect and equality, It is an image, a lesson that gets embedded into the subconscious. In our religion, they say from subconscious to superconscious. Which means, as long as we do not respect and treat all souls as equal, we cannot attain spiritual salvation. That is what the scriptures say in all religions. In my law firm also, I have seen that more than 50% of our members are ladies. That once a work is allotted to a lady lawyer, a professional, and there is no interference, they produce work which is better, balanced, and more appealing to the logical judicial mind. They are able to do all the work which their male counterparts are able to do. Their choice of words, method of expression, and the manner in which they collaborate and interact with their colleagues is very different and productive. This is what I have found out. Now, at Asocham in Tamil Nadu, for last 2 years since we were started here, I have been focusing on women entrepreneurship and the MSME segment. And therefore, we were very happy to immediately accept the proposal to collaborate with the US Consulate on this program, because it was in furtherance of our objectives. Entrepreneurial thinking is all about recognizing opportunities in the marketplace and understanding how to capitalize upon them. And I believe that economic empowerment is the best form of equalizing and bringing balance in the society. Our speakers this morning are all acknowledged and distinguished leaders in their respective fields. Our chief guest, Madam Apurva, became an IAS officer in 1994. She is known for her focused work. She is willing to take risks, stick her neck out once she is convinced about what is right. We are proud to have such officers in our state. Thank you, Madam, for your presence. We have Ms. Vijay Lakshmi Rao, who is the founder member of Empowering Women in IT, as one of our speakers. Ms. Sandhya Cherian, Director of the Frontier Lifeline Hospitals. We have Dr. Tangam Meghanathan, Chairperson of the Rajalakshmi Engineering College and Group of Institutions. And we have Ms. Rajshri Natarajan, the Chief Operating Officer of the Cognizant Foundation. These distinguished speakers have displayed entrepreneurial thinking, innovative communication, and a collaborative work culture to achieve and inspire success in this conservative part of India. And that makes it more significant. I look forward to hearing their thoughts, their experience, their ideas on how to foster entrepreneurship and empowerment to make women more successful in society. Having seen in my own family and my firm, I believe success of women is important in the interest of society, in the interest of country. And I believe if we have more women leaders, the world will be a much safer place. And I believe it. So I look forward to the deliberations. I look forward to taking back some points which I can implement in my family, in my firm, and in the industry through the medium of association. That is what is my interest here. And before I take my place, seeing the audience here, I think the few gentlemen who are here must think about reservation for men in the coming years. No, I tell you, I work with many law colleges across the country. In the last 23 years, which I have been involved in various law colleges, the top law colleges in the country are having enrollment of women students, lady students who have crossed more than 60%. And so as these top students come out into the profession, I am seeing a fundamental shift in the legal profession where the ladies are playing a more and more important role, more visible role, more impactful role, which I believe is bringing a lot of balance in the legal profession and shaking up a lot of old prejudices. And historically, in every country, the legal profession has provided leadership for the country, historically across the world. So therefore, I am convinced that in the next 15-20 years, in my country, we will see many, many more women leaders in responsible positions, and that will be good for the society and the country. So with those words, I once again extend a very warm welcome to all of you and look forward to fruitful deliberations from which we can all take back lessons to implement in our respective organizations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Surana, for your warm words and insightful address. I would now like to request Ms. Lauren Lovelace, the Public Affairs Officer, U.S. Consulate General in Chennai, to address the audience, please.
Vanakkam, welcome. Delighted to be here on behalf of the U.S. Consulate General in Chennai. I bring you greetings and a welcome also from our brand new Consul General, Robert Burgess. He's in Hyderabad today talking about his work as a Consul General in a grouping of all the Consul Generals throughout India. One of the things they'll be speaking about certainly is the upcoming Global Entrepreneurship Summit, which is happening in Hyderabad on November 28th through 30th. It was an agreement by the White House in the United States and your Prime Minister to have this come together. So it'll be represented by Ivanka Trump, who's a senior advisor and daughter of President Trump. So we're delighted about this upcoming event. We're going to be having our own event here in Chennai, co-hosted by IIT Madras. So we'll look forward to that. But I'm not a business person. I'm a diplomat and more of a cultural and arts enthusiast in that. But when I saw the theme for the upcoming Global Entrepreneurship Summit, it was a theme that you would love, that we should all love, whether we're Republicans or Democrats, whether we are BJP or Congress or otherwise, whatever you're coming from in your political affiliation. The theme is women first, prosperity for all. And this is getting back to the excellent remarks that our host just made for us on behalf of ASSOCHAM. Couldn't agree more with the importance of empowering women, empowering girls, and enabling people to be their best. And when women especially are engaged in the economy, we find that there's a higher level of education, there's a higher level of security and peace. So I'm coming from working in Afghanistan. I've done quite a bit of work in throughout South Asia and Bangladesh as well. And one of the issues that I just wanted to mention is as women are educated and prepared for the workforce, one of the issues has also been moving from, once they have that doctorate, once they have that JD and law degree going on, and having the confidence and having the family support to use that. And that's something I think we should really, I hope will be discussed and thought about today. So yes, having the degrees, but also having the encouragement and confidence to go out and use those degrees. So I'm really excited today to have with us, and I think Asachan and our key speaker for welcoming Jennifer Iannolo here. Jennifer is a independent American citizen. She's here on behalf of a program called the U.S. Speaker Program. And she's here as an expert in her field, which is as an entrepreneur. If I understand correctly, she started her first company when she was 8. So she has more than 40 years ahead of me of starting one. That's really, really incredible. She has done work before people were ever talking about social entrepreneurship. She was talking about social entrepreneurship in her work at the Stern School of Business at NYU, which is one of our best schools for business in the country, in the United States, and also in the world. So when I heard, I had the privilege yesterday to hear Jennifer and to watch Jennifer as she listened to pitch sessions coming from some new startup CEOs who are affiliated with NASCOM. And the question that she kept asking is, can you explain what the problem is? Where is the problem? Can you explain in a pitch session in a few seconds, what's the problem that you're trying to fix and how are you going to fix it? And that was very helpful for me, even as a diplomat. I think coming from, we get used to using language, explaining, well, it's this platform, doing whatever. So that was very helpful. Just how do you vocalize and communicate the message that you're trying to put forward? And I will say, I want to thank that we were delighted to be at NASCOM yesterday. But as we looked toward a problem, I will say that there were no women there who were doing pitch sessions or as part of that startup organization. And when I spoke to the really excellent head of initiative there as to why that might be, he said that it was just a lack of applications by women entrepreneurs seeking to do startups. So it's not that they are not under consideration, it's that they are not applying. And so I wanted to share this message with you today, and I am, as was stated, so delighted to look out and see so many of you here who I think are clearly committed to the Women First Prosperity for All, not just theme, but requirement for our world. And I'm really would encourage you, as on behalf of the U.S. Consulate General, we support you. For any of you who have not visited our American Center, we welcome you. We have a fantastic library. We have spaces there for Education USA with colleagues. We have a wonderful foreign commercial service that I see. We have a representative here from our foreign commercial service. We believe in you. And whatever, as we talk today about, women in business, how to have it all, and how you define what all is for yourself, I think that's a big part of it. Because having it all can be kind of heavy. Having what you want and what makes you happy. We support you in this at the U.S. Consulate General. So thank you so much. Thank you to Asachan. Thank you to our partners thank you to Surana and Sarana. Thank you to our chief guest. And thank you to Jennifer Iannolo. And one last thing, I would like to say thank you to my own excellent team in the public affairs section. Thank you to Ratna and Brenda. And thank you to TGV and Mogador. And also Brenda and everybody who helped bring the program together today. And if I haven't met you, I'm a month in. I look forward to meeting you, and I look forward to working together. Thanks.
Friends, we are fortunate to have Selvi Apurva IAS, the Managing Director at ANSETCO here, who has chosen to invest her time in this morning's session. Before I invite her to deliver the Chief Guest address, I would like to briefly introduce her. As Dr. Surana alluded, Selvi Apurva is one of the senior most and most respected bureaucrats that we are fortunate to have in Tamil Nadu at this moment. She started her career in 1994. She went on to serve in various positions in various departments, from collector of Dharmaburi to being the joint commissioner in the Corporation of Chennai. She then served in the Tamil Nadu Sports Development Authority as the member secretary, then going on to serve as the commissioner of maternal child health and welfare, then as the additional secretary in the Health and Family Welfare Department, special secretary, Industries Department. She was then the Inspector General for Registration, and the most important Tsunami Project. She served as the project director. She also served as the Commissioner of Indian Medicine before returning as the Managing Director of Tamil Nadu Medical Services Corporation twice, in between serving as the Secretary to Higher Education Department. Presently, she serves as the Managing Director of TANSIDCO, which is in Guindy, Chennai. Without further ado, I would like to invite Selvi Apurva IAS, the Managing Director of TANSIDCO, to address us, please. Ma'am.
Very good morning to you all. Good morning, friends. I'm very happy to be here with you all. This morning, when I woke up, I thought, yeah, I'm coming here. What is it that we are contemplating today? Today it's all about how to have it all. So how many of you think you have it all? Only few, not everybody. Okay, so I was thinking, what is this to have it all? It's not to have it all, but it's to take it all. It's to take it all. Because I don't want someone to be giving it to me to have it all. First of all, if you want to have it, you have to take it all. So our agenda in life, I am a little bit of an extremist. I don't believe in anybody giving me anything. I believe in earning it myself and taking it all. So our agenda in life should be not to have it all, but to take it all. One thing. Second thing, every meeting I go, they always talk about empowering women. That seems to be one key word that got into everybody's mind. Who has to empower us? So we don't need empowerment from external. It's rather than somebody giving you something. Someone is being very benevolent to you and be nice to you and empower you. No. I will enhance myself. It's like enhancing rather than empowerment. Okay. So all of us women entrepreneurs, what we have to do is to enhance yourself instead of getting into the word of empowerment. Empowerment is little bit, it's not acceptable to me. I don't know. Do you all agree with me? So we always have to think of enhancing, empowering, and then whatever the decisions we make, always, it has to be within us. Only once we enhance ourselves, it happens. Then when we make a decision in our lives, either it's a business, it's good, bad, ugly, when it's my decision, I am able to defend it. I can defend my own decision, and we can go every extra mile to take the risk and defend our decisions. So that is how women of today we have to think. It's not coming from outside, we have to do it. And then also in India, we have something called a stereotype mindset. There are different scales for men and women. When a man talks very softly, he says, oh yeah, can you do this? Then they say, wow, what a nice gentleman. He's so soft spoken and nice. And the same thing when it's done by a woman, oh yeah, can you do this for me? Oh yeah, she's very inefficient, She doesn't know what she wants. So it's always, I feel as a woman in the profession, we need to work 400 times more than normal men, to prove that we are efficient. So, for example, in any profession, women always have to work extra, contribute more, because of the stereotype caste that is out there. So, normally there is no doubt we all work more and we are very, very efficient. And in business for women, or even in exams, or anywhere in life, there are only two things. Because often when we talk a lot about need, extra, and then often I find my students, my professor from Anna University will also answer with me. There is a question paper is very tough. Okay, it's very tough. There's nothing called tough in the world. There are two things, either I know or I do not know. Only these are the two things. There's nothing called tough, easy, difficult. Whether I know to do things or I don't know to do things. So these are the things. So to be ahead of everyone, we need to know things. So to know things, we need to keep our eyes and ears open all the time. And in life, we have a lot of things to learn from everyone. It's not that, okay, only a books or a management school, because I normally jovially say, it's my joke, only the management research, forgive me. Management is nothing but common sense made uncommon. So common sense, where they put a lot of jargons and make it difficult for you to understand. So, in life, we have everything. That basic common sense, if you have, you can just tile over and live. And then, I found what is the most difficult thing for the entrepreneurs or women career woman. What do you think it is? What is pulling us all down, you think?
Just us.
Pardon?
Just our thoughts.
What are the thoughts? No. See, we women, mostly, we are governed by guilt. We kill ourselves with guilt. I always tell them, especially when this morning when I just went through the website to see whether women have a talk. They all talk about work and family balance, whether to have the family, how to balance, blah, blah. Then I found, even many of my friends in service, they'll say, oh, my daughter is coming back at 6 o'clock. Oh, my husband is coming. So they feel working is something you're doing, a sin, whereas the other things are more important. So most of us are governed by this concept of guilt. You say, oh, I have not done this, I have not done that. Just forget about it. You are not born to be killed by guilt. In this world, everyone is born with a purpose. Everyone has to take care of themselves. So give them the space. Don't kill yourself with, because most of the women entrepreneurs, whenever I attend any conference, they'll say, oh, how to manage family, how to manage. Yes, family, you manage. But all the time I find, when you go to work, you're thinking of your house. And then when you come back to the house, you're thinking about work. So why is it happening? Because you're guilty. I think most of them are governed by guilt. Just stop. Just that. It's your life. You have to learn. We have to be ahead. And we have to take it all. To take it all, we need to be a little more self-centered. I'm not asking you to be selfish. We need to be self-centered. Concentrate on what we do. And if we do that, I strongly feel women are more, always tend to do the right things. Because women can't be weaned away by other temptations. So when we have so many positive qualities, only thing is we need to get focused, put things in the center platform and say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to feel guilty. I'm going to go ahead. And it's not for anybody to give it. It's for me to take it. So let's all go ahead and take it all. Wishing you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your encouraging and inspiring address. I would now like to request Dr. Thangam Meghnathan, the chairperson of the Rajalakshmi Group of Institutions, to honor and welcome the dignitaries from that. Thank you, ma'am. I request Dr. Vinod Surana, the chairman for Association Tamil Nadu, to honor our chief guest, Sri Apurva IAS, with a memento. Ladies and gentlemen, with this we come to the end of our inaugural session. Before we move on to our next panel discussion, I request Dr. Vinod Surana to escort our dignitaries of the diocese. I would now like to request Ms. Rajshri Narajan, the moderator for the panel, the CEO of Cognizant Foundation, to come forward, please. I request Ms. Sandhya Cherry, Director of Frontier Lifeline Hospitals, to join us, please. I request Ms. Viji, the founder of Empowering Women in IT, to join us, please.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. This is the wake-up test. And it's been a very, I was very intrigued by the entire topic. Ms. Lauren was saying that women in business and having it all. That having it all sounded very big, probably a little greedy as well, right? I think she beautifully set the tone for the day and said that is it having it all or wanting to, have it what you want, what is worthy for us. It's a beautiful topic and a very, very eminent set of speakers here on the dais. So without much of ado, I want to get on to the program. And when actually this note about this entire program came, that there were a lot of questions on that saying the odds are against for women to raise it to the top. Do we all think so? Something that we all need to keep pondering on that as well, because we always keep talking about a lot of challenges and against a lot of challenges that we come up. Like Dr. Vinod Surana rightly pointed out, many a times in many occasions like this, men also happens to be minority and where they need quota as well. So the challenges per se, is it very different from women? That's something that we need to ponder. Like why women in business finding it difficult, if we find it difficult to really have what we feel that it is rightfully ours or what is worthy for us type. So those are some interesting questions to ponder on today's panel discussion. I really want to take this opportunity to thank Asocham for having put together such an event. And also a wonderful set of panelists here. Okay, so before much of ado, I want to actually get started, and each one would be actually having their share of thoughts first to share it with all of us, and therefore we can move on quickly to the Q&A and then the interactive sessions part. Having it all of what is worthy for us. Who else can speak about this? I thank this event, particularly for introducing me to Jennifer. I went through your Concordia Project. And what reminded me of that is what in recent, in the recent trend that every business is talking about having ikigai for not just the individual but also the company, right? Ikigai is the Japanese concept. I'm sure you all would have heard about the TED Talk by where it talk about how people in Okinawa actually live more than 100 years. Just by doing what they feel that they're passionate about and aligning the profession, vocation and everything to that passion. So that's a very interesting topic, not just the individuals to ponder. Now today corporates are actually pondering what is company's ikigai, like what is the purpose of a company, the very existence of a company and so on. And when I went through the profile of Jennifer and the Concordia Project, I felt that she made it so simple. Why it's simple? Because our starting question is, what is it you want to do as you were a child? What does that make you a joy? That was the first question. And I always feel that keeping the child in you, live, that actually makes the whole life worthy. The purpose of life for us probably is to keep a child in us very active and live all the time, right? Children enjoy, come what may. They don't feel gloomy over challenges. They have challenges, they pick it up and run. They love it. They love even screaming at you, shouting at you, crying at you, but they're still happy doing it. So keeping our children, child in us happy is something that I've always thought, personally I was resonating a lot with your Concordia Project. So before much about you, and I know that I want to actually kind of need to formally introduce you as well. I cannot just go talk about Concordia Project and do that. Just imagine she's been taking this project of Concordia to places that where all that is actually what they like makes sense, and that is actually needed. Recently to Nepal, okay? And she's doing it for all people from Harvard to actually UN associates, and a wide variety of audience for a talk. Very inspiring and engaging is what everybody keeps saying. And please create the Nepal effect in Chennai as well. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I love the comments from earlier, because so many times we hear this having it all. And it's a context, right? So all is a context. And with the women that I work with, a lot of the time I'll say to them, well, says who? And it doesn't matter what culture we're from, there's this sort of ingrained thought pattern that we have where we're kind of waiting for permission, right? And I've noticed myself doing it as well. And so one of the first things I say to young women is, no one is coming. No one is coming to give you permission, to tell you how to do it, to tell you whether it's the right choice or the wrong choice. And I think that the family context, which we talked about a little bit earlier, is so important. Because in the conversation of women and empowerment, I looked at my own family context for it. Because I had a mother who emigrated from Europe to the United States when she was 19 years old. She packed a trunk and she left. She said, I don't want to grow up on a farm, so I'm heading to the United States. And it never occurred to her to ask for permission. She made a choice, and she set out to do that. And my father had a similar scenario in southern Italy after World War II. He left for the United States. So these two people did not raise me to think, you are a girl, therefore. They said to me, think, dream, build, go create the life that you want to have. So I never had a context called, I'm a girl, therefore. And I remember in second grade, the teacher asked us what we wanted to be when we grew up. And I was feeling kind of creative that day, and I said, I want to be an astronaut. And the boy next to me said, you can't be an astronaut, you're a girl. And I just looked at him and I thought, well, that's a silly thing to say. So it just didn't occur to me that there was things girls should do and things boys should do. So I think when we look at the purest vision of what it means to be passionate about something and go create all whatever it is, that's when we experience true empowerment, because it does come from within. It's not something we can give you. And when a person understands that it's a self-generated act, to be empowered, that is actually how we change the world.
The next speaker I want to introduce, someone whom I felt at times very crazy enough to make women entrepreneurs successful. Okay, let me introduce actually Vijay Rao, because I knew her personally, as part of the WISE mentoring program. WISE mentoring. Okay, where it's actually women investing and supporting entrepreneurship. That's actually a part of initiative from Kiritsu Investors Forum. And one thing that I found, your passion for making women successful in business and startups is so contagious that she will make us feel guilty that if we are busy in other aspects, to drop everything and come over and somehow support women who are actually trying to put their startups. Sometimes what we found very crazy enough there is that we don't even know whether we have so many mentees there waiting for that mentoring, or like whether the women are actually trying to really make a card in the startups and business, and particularly in the entrepreneurship space. And she has so much of knowledge to share. And she herself having co-founder, director, being a director, and then like giving away a corporate career for Scope, and very, very active in ISB chapter for mentoring. Now she's very, very active in making women successful in business. So I would want to hear Viji's thoughts on this.
Thank you, Rajshri, for a slightly not so expected crazy introduction. Really happy to be here today, and it's really awesome listening to Jennifer and Apurva madam. Mr. Surana talked about entrepreneurship and empowerment in the same voice. For me, when I talk about, want it all, take it all, have it all, and if I look at my own journey, I did raise my hand when she asked that question. I think if I have had it all, the only thing I can say is, yes, it's not been easy. It's been difficult. It's difficult being a working woman. It's even more difficult being a woman entrepreneur. And I have straddled both these journeys. There are a lot of challenges. Childcare to geriatric care, finding a role model to finding time to network, work-life balance issues being thrown at you almost every day. It's difficult. But you know something, I think I look back, it is something that I have thoroughly enjoyed. And why is that so? I just have 3 very little bits of tips to share with all the women here, and that's really based on my own experience and also my own interaction with a large number of women entrepreneurs whom I have interacted with and mentored as part of the Goldman Sachs program, which the Indian School of Business ran for over 5 years. I have also mentored women in the corporate side, and I'm associated with this organization called Empowering Women in IT. I have some of my colleagues sitting here. But I think there is no difference here, whether you're a woman from the corporate side or you are an entrepreneur. The challenges that you face are similar. You can have it all. I think a lot depends on how you define all, and Jennifer actually alluded to it. What is it? One needs to look at it from a more holistic perspective, according to me, because I think this whole business of, I want to be a director in my company and I also want to be a super mom, and I have 2 small kids, doesn't really wash. I think you need to define what is it that you're looking for in life at any point in time. And this can change as you traverse this whole journey. When I was a 25-year-old, money, power, everything to me. I gave it all, and I think I had it all. But at this stage of my life, 30 or 35 years later, I think more of giving back, social work, spiritual journeys, that's something I want to have it all of. So I think one needs to define all. That's the starting point. Once you've done that, I think focus. You have the clarity of purpose, go after it. You can do it. The second is more in terms of choices, in terms of informed choices that one gets to make. I took a break in my career for about 4 years when I was at the peak of my career because I had my children. And I felt that I needed to spend that kind of quality time with them. Those days would never come back again, and I have no regrets. I often find women, and especially women entrepreneurs, straddling this whole thing with great difficulty and saying, how can I spend my time at office, and how can I do this, and I'm taking so much risks? Well, you can't look outside. You need to look within and own your choices. If you have chosen to be an entrepreneur, apply for that program which Lauren talked about. There are no applications today from women entrepreneurs. Why is that so? We need to introspect. And the third most important thing, it's a much more word, this whole issue of work-life balance. I don't really agree with it because I think we're all one individual. The two actually blend together. It can't be work and life. They got to be integrated. One could have hobbies, one could have other interests. Plan it out. I know planning is something that most of us talk about, we don't really do, but I'm a strong believer of both. Long-term planning, short-term planning. Where do you want to get married? Whom do you want to get married to? These are strategic decisions. Do you want to relocate? but also slightly lesser strategic decisions, but equally important in terms of, do I want full-time labor? Do I want to be an entrepreneur? Do I want to freelance? Do I want to work out of home? Make your choices. And plan this whole thing out. Right after saying, do I make a client call at 3 p.m. or do I attend a PTA meeting which happens, a parent teachers meeting which happens once in 2 months, every Wednesday, and I know about it in advance. So plan it out. And I think if you do this, you actually enjoy your journey. Learn to live your life. I find so few women actually happy and enjoying what they're doing. Please do that. And that makes this whole journey far easier. You can have it all. Believe me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Vijay. You kind of wonderfully put it, saying like looking within. What I thought that she would also touch upon is she's such a caring, a human being. I mean, it's not that just in the professional setup in the IT and ITES sector that she's mentoring. She's also part of ANU, which is actually trying to, she's an advisor which is trying to actually reach out to real underprivileged women, and where she found her ikigai by just giving back to society. So thanks a lot, Vijay. Before moving on, I know Dr. Sandhya Chedian wanted to actually use the presentation, therefore I would take just the order a little different. Sitting next to me is someone who has actually founded something like a technical education institute, and not just made it as actually one of the top quality reputed institution by way of quality. She's someone who made actually the entire, with a care for the students, making it as actually a child-centric, something like 20 years back. Dr. Tangam Meghnadhan, chairperson of Rajlakshmi Engineering College. She is actually in the world of making more women, and particularly like the future entrepreneurs are looking up to you, because that is actually the grooming ground for all the future women leaders. So I'm actually eager to listen to your words as well.
Thank you, Adishri. Let me just start with like, the definition for entrepreneurship doesn't change because you are a woman or a man. The definition for entrepreneurship, meaning like wanting or having that keen interest to set up a business in order to make profit. This is the basic concept of entrepreneurship. So this doesn't change at all just because you are a woman or a man. Today we have this, women entrepreneurs have it all. There is like very tricky, I would say this, have it all. You know, everybody said, okay, yeah, have it all is like, have all the pleasures of, the adulation and, the success, the financial success and your media presence and everything, it's all, have it all. I also would like to add, have it all. Having to deal with customers, having to deal with bankers, having to deal with so have it all means it is all. Okay, it's on a broad brush of all. Women entrepreneurship, like in our college we have this entrepreneurship cell, because we keep clearing is one particular field of discipline where creativity is unbound. You can become very creative, and creativity is a very basic for starting an entrepreneurship. If you have a creative idea and you are very passionate about it and you are willing to go take the risk and set up a business and all the way go down to see to it that you create a brand and make a success of yourself, is something that it's very self-satisfying thing. I would just casually mention a couple of things like, we're talking about women entrepreneurship. We look at it like, it's a big thing, breaking the glass ceiling and all those stuff. But when I see a flower vendor, woman flower vendor, or a fruit vendor, they are also entrepreneurs. If you really know, this lady gets probably 100 rupees loan every day, goes to the Coimbatore market early morning, buys flowers or fruits or whatever, and by the end of the day she is sure to make 50 rupees or 20 rupees or 30 rupees. She knows she has a margin very clear in her mind. In business school, what they teach like the cost of raw material and then your labor and your labor rate and your overheads and then your price, my subtract price from all these costs and then you take your contribution, where is your what is it, break, whatever, profit area and all that. But these women who are totally uneducated, they are very, when you try to bargain with them, you can see their language is like, they will not go below price because they know the margin will get it. Without being taught in business school, they are like very, think they are entrepreneurs themselves. We should, I think, applaud all these unrecognized women. What happens with education? Why are we not being that daring or why are we not being forthcoming in entrepreneurship equipped with education? These women without education or background are doing this, but we with the education we are thinking many times because we think I have a job that's paying me very well and it's very comfortable, but should I get out of this comfort zone? But you should understand today's nation's requirements for employment creation. The most important thing today is how do we go about creating employment? That's the most important thing. Getting employed is good, but creating employment is like, it's a great, it's a service you do. Some time back, I think in a Portuguese function of biography, he had just mentioned, sometimes when you look at entrepreneurship and business, you even tend to think that it is sort of a service. Beyond a particular period, you made enough of your personal wealth and everything. Beyond that, it becomes more a service. So, I would say, we are assuming there is something, so have it all, take it all, like Mr. Apurva said, take it all and give it all. So this is how I would put it. And the basic things like they all like she also mentioned about it, she also grooming. There are a lot of people like her who are willing to groom women into entrepreneurship. And women by nature, I would never say like Mrs. Rajesh when she mentioned, when you say that all, it means even greedy. But we are greedy. We should accept that. When it comes to marriage, is there any lady who wants to marry somebody who is earning less than her? No, you don't. And when it comes to buying things, you want to get the best. Let's not hide saying that, oh, I am a woman, I don't want to think in terms of money, because money and women don't. We are very clear. We should be very clear that money is one important aspect. Material things are one important aspect. And as you mature, you will understand that it is something that even that has got a, marginal utility. It comes to a stage where, you feel that it is enough of it and you may want to just go into service. So with these words, I would like to congratulate. And one important thing I think Vijay also mentioned, where I think a lot of women sort of lack when it comes to entrepreneurship is relationship management or networking. We are not going out of our team circle to network and to connect with people and to get to understand what is in their mind and share your ideas with them. These things don't happen with women that quickly. So, forums such as Association and others, when they roll out such programs, it's a great opportunity for all of you. I think with this, I would like to give the mic back to her.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. She almost redefined our own Maslow's hierarchy. Like, it is okay to take it all, or I should say even grab it all, have it all, and also like only then you can actually give it back to all. So it's a very, beautifully kind of summarized, and she actually touched upon, you rightly touched upon, the most important aspect, the relationship with the networking. When it comes to work and life balance, like as Vijay was pointing out, it's not the two work and life with the same individual after all. And there is a time that you have to manage everything. The first thing that will compromise is actually this networking and managing relationship when it comes to women in business. Okay, we'll take that as the next set of questions. But before that, I want to actually say to Ms. Sandhya Chaudhary, I was actually going through our from the heart interviews saying that how she wanted to be a doctor and how she chose a different profession or she was made to choose a different profession. And how with the better services background, and she's again coming back to the same medical field and trying to make a difference here. And having gone through certain personal challenges and relocation to India back and battling some of the societal norms here, now how she actually was raising against all those challenges. Over to you, Ms. Sandhya.
I actually have that little presentation on the topics. Can I first do that before I talk? First and foremost, a very good morning to our chairperson, Ms. Lovelace, Ms. Jennifer, the distinguished dignitaries here, and my dear friends. A very good morning. I want to first say a big thank you to Vinod Solomon, who invited me to this workshop. I think this is an excellent platform for women, and I really think Association is doing a great job heading and leading this campaign in empowering women. Can somebody help me with the slides? My name is Sanjay Cherry, like I have been introduced. I am the director of Frontier Lifeline Hospital and the vice president of Frontier Medical, which is a research unit of the Frontier Lifeline Hospital. Can I have the next slide? Vinod had asked me to speak a little bit or share my thoughts about some of the common problems or challenges that women face. So I kind of thought about it last night and put up probably 4 or 5 slides here. Thought I would share my thoughts with you all. It definitely is a male-dominated society, no matter what, there's a lot of talk saying that there's gender parity and we've moved and we've developed and things like that, but we still find that we are still a male-dominated society. You walk into a networking event, you will find that there are a handful of women and majority are men, unlike this particular crowd here. And you also find when you are in, let's say, a big meeting or you're in a board meeting, you find that you may be the only woman there and you may have to give directions to men, and these are men probably who are not willing to take any directions from you, and this is something that I face personally. Voicing out your opinion, in this male-dominated society is definitely a challenge. And I think when your ideas, when you do voice out your ideas, I think your ideas receive more scrutiny than your male counterparts. The other problem that I think women face is this problem with finance. When you're just starting off a company, being a woman entrepreneur, you find that you do not have that credibility established. You do not have any credit history that is established. So it's hard for you to get loans. And so women looking for business investors, you should definitely have a good business plan. Really think about what you really want. Chart it out properly. Plan your proposal really well. And market analytics basically shows that venture capital firms, the ones with female partners are the ones who are likely to invest in women-run startups. So kindly, when you are starting off a company, keep that in mind. You may probably be able to get these loans a little more easier if you went to venture capitalist funds run by women. The next one is, the challenge is family. Like everybody was talking about, balancing both work and family. I definitely do find it a challenge. I am, out of my personal experience, I am a widow. I lost my husband around 4.5 years ago. And we used to live in the US until then, around 14-15 years. And when I came down, there were a lot of challenges that I faced. Number one, just the transition part of it was very hard for my kids. Being born and brought up there, obviously culturally, there are a lot of differences. Things that you take for granted there are not here. And so there were those kinds of challenges to put up with. But the other challenges that I had to put up with is not having that father figure role and trying to play the role of both the father and the mother together was a little difficult, and I still find it very difficult. So for me personally speaking, family time is important. So I do find that when it comes to balancing my family with work, I find it challenging because I feel guilty, I feel that I need to put in a little more time with my kids because they do not have their father, and therefore I do find that very challenging. And I'm sure there are many of you who do feel what I feel, and work does take a backseat. The other thing is, the challenges of having high pressure. Can I go back to the other slide, please? The high pressure and stress that is involved when you're juggling both your work and your family. Due to your family, you find that there is limited mobility. You are not able to probably go out of state, or you may have some potential clients that you would like to visit, maybe out of the country.
But you're not able to do any of that because of your family environment. You want to be there with your child, who may be a toddler or a young child, and therefore the family definitely does play a role and limits your mobility there. And when your mobility is limited, you find that your marketing of your brand or your services again gets limited. So again, those are other challenges that you face. When you do not have marketing, then you
don't have stiff competition. There could be a similar sort of a brand or a product or a service that a male counterpart might be marketing, and you're not able to do justice to your brand because you're not able to travel or you're not able to market. So there is competition. The other part is the fear of failure. I think in general, women are not big risk takers. We're a little scared about taking these huge risks. So I think that is another challenge that maybe most of us need to overcome. Some of the tips that I thought maybe I could share is if you are a woman entrepreneur running your own business, then you are the boss. But you also are the employer. So no one is going to be looking over your shoulder asking you to do this or that. You need to feel that from within. And so it's easy to lose track of time when you are your own boss and your own employee. You may want to have a very relaxed day. You may end up spending time watching TV or whatever, going shopping or whatever it is. So you need to keep in mind that you are the only one responsible for your own progress. Secondly, set targets and allocate work for yourself. Thirdly, learn to prioritize your work. You need to complete. There are lots of to-do lists that get made. At least I do make a to-do list in the morning, and I try to see if I can complete most of those tasks that I have written down in the morning by end of day. But I always find that towards maybe the middle of the day, I'm adding more onto my list. So it becomes very difficult to complete your entire list that particular day. So it's important to prioritize and see what is most important and then work accordingly. It is important to have that work, balance between your work and your family. Like I said, I do have that guilt trip, and I try not to, but I'm not, able to overcome that part of it. But I try to, write down things during the beginning of the day and try and set aside some time so that I do spend that last part of the day with my kids when they get back from school. Do not ignore your health. I think that is something that all of us do. You need to make sure that you're healthy for your family, and if you do not have health, then obviously nothing else is going to fall in place. Voice your opinions. Don't let others decide for you. This is something that I would like to tell most women here. When I was growing up as a child, I like she, our host said, I wanted to become a doctor, and that was a dream of mine. But then my dad, being a doctor, he said, no, you cannot be a doctor. And when I was in my 10th grade, though I had excellent marks in my biology, I was told that I cannot take up the science stream. And I took up the science stream, but it didn't have biology in my 11th and 12th, because he wanted to ensure that I did not have that option at all. And so I did my physics, chemistry, math, whatever, and I got into engineering. I studied at Anna University. And then, but I was still keen on, pursuing medicine, and therefore I went into the biomedical engineering field. I still tried to get back into the hospital environment and the medical field. But what I wanted to tell you is, if we live in a society where our parents dictate things or our husbands dictate things, and we tend to listen to that. And sometimes we compromise. And I think those are things, I think now, I think the current generation has definitely changed, and they voice out their opinions more than we guys did. But I think I strongly encourage all of you, especially the younger folk, to voice out your opinion and be heard. Keep learning. Once, your real learning starts when you really, graduate from college and start working. And these days, everything is, technology driven. So make sure that you all are technology savvy, computer savvy, and make sure that, you embrace technology. So those were a few of the tips that I wanted to share with you. I don't think I have anything in there, but make sure you dream big, and I hope all of your dreams come true, and I wish you all good luck. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ms. Sandhya. Thanks for sharing your practical experience and all the lessons and the checklist that you made for yourself, like prioritization is the key, and chasing your dreams, like how difficult it had been, trying to find your way into the medical field, like how you've chased your dreams. That's actually truly inspiring. I'll go, I thought that we will do one round of questioners, and before that, if you have any questions from the audience, we would also want to take that. That's what I was also planning. Okay. Just that, before going for the remarks, I thought I will also, introduce them in smaller snippets, because normally the introduction itself runs for pages. So I thought I will put the introduction itself in the form of a question for each one of them. Actually, one thing that was actually very interested me was that Jennifer's session. Always is like an emotional roller coaster sessions for people to open up with laughter and tears. And in spite of that, she kind of makes that engaging connection to make them open up. So I wanted to actually listen to what those secrets are and what is that people opened up and talked about as the challenges. Because she is actually a featured speaker of US Department of State on Women's Entrepreneurship and Empowerment. Okay, that's in that capacity. She's actually traveled across the world. And not just that, she is also a lifelong entrepreneur and a pioneer in digital media. So she has a personal experience of doing that and then sharing. So I wanted actually you to cover as part of your second round of remarks.
So what's interesting to answer your first question, so the workshops that we do with young women, and we've now done these from Nepal to Harvard's Women in Business Conference, and what it does is it allows women to kind of go back to a time before someone told them they could or they couldn't. So that's why I always ask about early childhood, because there is a time in life when no one tells us we can or we can't, so we just do the thing that is natural to us. For me, it was to be bossy. So I had a pretend business when I was little, and my neighbor was my secretary, and he was very good. He was an excellent secretary, but I just always had an inclination to create something and be in charge. So I'll never forget the first time we did this at Harvard. I asked the question, and as we were going through the creation questions of what does your life look like 5 years from now? What are you doing? Where are you? This woman raised her hand and she said, I just realized I don't want kids. And I said, well, that's a really major thing to realize now that you're 22 and ready to go out in the world. You just saved yourself a whole bunch of years of not being happy if you don't want children. And so it really clarifies what it is that most drives us. No, thank you. And so what was your second question? It was about entrepreneurship.
Experience of being a lifelong entrepreneur yourself, what is that for you?
It's very interesting. So when we launched the digital food media company that I had with a friend, you know, we would go into meetings, and whether we would go out to restaurants, and they would always put the bill down in front of him. And he would say, well, she's the CEO, you need to give the bill to her. She's got the company credit card. We found that we had to train people. And so if we were going into a meeting full of men, I would take the seat at the head of the table, and I would just sit there. So there was a way to create who I was going to be in that conversation that was really important. So it was just always interesting to see how the world interacted with us. And the restaurant bill was every single time they put the bill down in front of him. They never put it in front of me. So then I would just take it and give them the credit card. So it was just really fascinating to see what the world expects, and then when you turn the tables.
Just on the same topic, when you're talking about restaurants, I think you should also touch upon your salon dinner table conversation as part of Concordia Project as well.
Yes, so our salon dinners with the Concordia Project, the metaphor is that we want to gather young women around the world at a virtual table, because we're across time zones and things. So we have a virtual table where we have conversation. And then we thought, you know, some of these conversations are difficult to have. Men versus women and all the things happening in the world. So we're also having the conversations at a dinner table. We're breaking bread together with people from all walks of life, men and women, to really talk about how we go from idea to implementation. Because I think a lot in the world we talk about these things, but then what? What's next? And so the idea behind the dinners is we share a wonderful meal. So I pull in my food and wine life, so I still have that. And then a white paper goes out to the people who attended that dinner with an action plan. Like, okay, you said you're going to act on this thing. Here's your to-do list. So then it actually creates responsibility for the person who has broken bread at the table.
Fantastic. Dinner table with action items. So that's so wonderful, Jennifer. Thanks for sharing that. I'm sure that in the next round you should share more, like as part of questions as well. You can share more of that. I would move on to Vijay again. Like, you know, she talked about having it all, and it's actually how it's possible. Personally, I mean, you talked about, I mean, I know about you, like happy family and work life. Okay, I mean, something that made it possible. A very inspiring career, straight from Ahmedabad. I know you had your own dreams of working with several organizations like SAIL, and being the director of Scope and the COO of Scope, handling the HR portfolio and all that. Now, coaching and mentoring for actually mid-level people to aspire high and bigger. A very, very inspiring career, not just about mentoring from IT and ITs, and also for the underprivileged women and so on. Very interesting career of all that. What were the personal challenges you faced? You did talk about, how did you talk about prioritization at that point of time? Like, being a very inspiring woman now and spreading cheer. I'm sure that you retained a lot of those cheer even in those difficult days when you had to take those difficult decisions and so on. And actually, Sandhya was also talking about prioritization. You made some bigger priorities in life at that point of time. At this point of juncture, is it business or is it, like my family? And coming back and revisiting and bouncing back, which is not so easy for all women to do it naturally in this country. I mean, I've seen several forums, specifically targeting like the Avatar group and all that, where we've interacted with people, like once they've moved out of their career, and they think that that's actually the door is closed for them. Bouncing back is a very, very difficult thing to do. What made you do that, and what kind of challenges you faced?
That's quite a question, Rajeshri, but I think I'll just take a moment to say, when I first I have a brother and I was born and brought up in Mumbai, very middle class family, but both of us were brought up equally, no distinction, no gender bias at home, a lot of thrust on education. But I think my first brush with this whole thing came when I attended the interview, for IIM. And one of the questions, and there were 3 panelists, and even today looking back, it strikes me that it was such a joke. They looked at me and they said, well, everything is fine, but then where will you be 5 years from now? So I said, well, I think I will be working. Why do you ask that? For me, that was a given. And, I found later that this was a question that they asked every girl candidate, simply because they wanted to make sure that the girl they take will actually stick to her job and she's not denying perhaps a more deserving male candidate. For me, this was shocking, that the very fact that they should ask you something like this, because if you're made it there, it's a given that you would work and you would continue your career. But to ask something like that and make sure, this was the mindset so many years ago. And I think this was the beginning when I first realized that this is a question that one will be asked again and again. And it happens even today. In terms of challenges, well, I think there were a couple of inflection points. The first one, of course, was that I think as women, we tend to keep a lot to ourselves. We feel this is something we need to do. And, we refuse to take a call in terms of letting go. We feel we are kind of perfectionists, we are control freaks, we do everything. And it was in scope when I was, taking on a lot more projects than I could ever handle. It was becoming tough, my kids were young. And I sat back one day and I said, look, can I handle all this? I can't. And what do I need? I need to seek help, right? And I looked around and I said, whom can I seek help from? And the 2 people who struck me were my own husband and my mother-in-law, whom I had perhaps never had a conversation with seriously to say, look, I need help. And my mother-in-law, she immediately volunteered. She said, okay, fine, you can leave the kids here after school. And my husband said, look, what do you think you can't do at home, which you want to kind of outsource? I mean, that was quite a mantra at home as well. And I said, well, maybe cooking, maybe driving. And I think these were decisions so easily taken, but, I think as women, we tend to bottle all this up. We find it difficult to let go and say that, okay, if I need to have more time at work, maybe I can afford it, maybe let me just outsource some of the work that is not draining on my quality time with my family. So maybe if there is something that you can do outside, get done. Externally, do it. Seek help. I have a colleague of mine from EVIT, Kalyani, who talks about, can I mention that, Kalyani? She gives a lecture on empowering the mother-in-law. You should listen to her. She came to my company and talked about it, and all my women employees were completely charged up. Because I think we don't seek help when we want to. And I think that is one challenge which I think if we get over, that's it. The second important thing also is in terms of taking a break. I mean, now there's all this hullabulla about return to work women. Well, I can proudly say I was one. I took a break for 4 years. And, as a woman, if you do it, you actually don't have questions asked at you in interviews saying, why did you take a break? It's a luxury that we have. So why don't you use it? Take flexi time, take breaks from work, but keep in touch with your field. And if you do that, I think you can still come back. And, it's like you haven't lost it all. And, I think it's just have to go and take that decision. That's it.
Beautiful, very nicely summarized. Bouncing back, keeping in touch in that period and taking help from where it comes. And like, what is a priority at that point of time? What is that you truly want at that point of time? And going on with what your conscience says, I think very beautifully, nicely summed up. And she touched upon a point like, like you may want to take a break, but keeping in touch is very important. And this is a time that I want to go to Dr. Meghnadhan as well. Like, she also talked about relationship management and networking is a tough thing to do even when you're actually in the job, and when you are actually taking a break, maintaining that is even more, it's kind of difficult. She actually, like when I was going through Dr. Meghnadhan's profile, Rajalakshmi College, and making that actually the credible college for quality and so on, I suddenly remembered, like someone who has studied very close to, in a Chennai altogether, from Presidency College to actually, doing your directorate PhD for technical education. My father always used to encourage me to do PhD for one reason, because he feels doing a PhD and being in academics is the safest thing for women. I wouldn't say easiest. He always feels it's the safest thing for women. If you go and get into academics more, it's the most safe profession. Why? Because anyway, all others are younger children, and he thinks it's easy to deal with them. And it's more of women folks around you, I don't know, whatever it is. But somebody actually who made actually a different path, trying to come out and finding a college and being on the administration side of it, I'm sure it would have its own set of challenges, set of networking that you have to do, put your hard work to make something as an institute to come to this state. Would you share some of the challenges that you faced and how you kind of, from there, made to graduated yourself from taking it all and having it all and giving it all now?
Yes, Rajshri. But one, to start with, let me just say, academics is the toughest career. It is not, I don't know about the safety part of it, maybe. I don't know about the safety thing, but, to teach a class of 45 to 60 is a very big challenge. Particularly today when the children are very, very active and are very, very informed and things like that. To prepare for a class and then to deliver to your satisfaction and to the satisfaction of the audience is a very, very tough task. Because when I did my diploma in Cambridge diploma in teaching and training, I had to do this. So I found, but when your question about having to deal with people, we have something like about roughly around 600 teachers, and then other support staff and others. In my particular career, when it comes to teachers, I understood that they are like artists. You should be able to understand people. Like networking is very important because, you have to go out and meet different type of people. Like, you get to see your family and then your immediate family and then your close friends and then friends' family. That is not enough. Go meet strangers, get to know them, understand them, and that is where a lot of learning comes in HR. Human resource is nothing but understanding people, And I found that this particular profession, the teachers are not like other professionals. Teachers are like, good teachers are like artists, like good artists. The artists always have their own whims and fancies and moods and things like that. You have to go with that. Like, there may be, and very often in our society, people come to you with a concluded thing. I'm going to ask this, and she is going to say this, and I'm going to reply like this, and this is. They somehow imagine the conversation and then come, and then when you let them, put them like don't worry, relax, and let me know what the issue is there on your head, and then let's have a discussion, and then let's come to a conclusion whether you're happy with this or not. Ultimately, it is in any business for that matter, it is the customer, or whose life you are intended to touch the maximum. This is very important. In my particular thing, like everything revolves around a student. Whatever we do, like that's what I always tell my people, between morning 8 to 3, whatever action that is happening in the campus, let's do an audit and see how it impacts the student. This is very important because our purpose is to enhance the students' learning capability and their vision. So every little action should be towards that, and teachers play a very vital role in that. And I have not had any great difficulty, but in the initial stages, very often I had to sort of put up with my own emotions of not losing my temper at any time, and empathizing with people doesn't come that easily. You have to keep practicing, because very often you find that even the toughest employee, the problem is that there is something that this employee is not wanting to come and share, whether it is with the family or with the colleagues. So if you can tap that and then make him feel comfortable and confident that he can share that whatever fear that he has, then I think a lot of issues will be solved. And human resource is a very, very important aspect of any business, because you may have everything. You may have the bank loan or the money, and you may have the material, you may have, but it is end of all, it is the people who will have to realize your dream. You have to realize your dream through the people with whom you are working, all your colleagues. They are very, very important to you, and how you deal with them it comes to some extent on learning from the textbooks. A lot of it comes out of experience. Like every day in the evening, like she was talking about things to do during dinner meetings, I always think about the number of people I met that day and what transpired. Am I happy? Am I satisfied with that kind of an interaction? Have I done well there? This is something that is very important for me to do a sort of an audit every day. Am I clear? Yes. Yeah.
Everybody talks about prioritization, personal checklist, personal audit, going within, a lot of introspection and so on. That sounds like a lot of work actually. But you people are also inspiring because you've done it with ease, and probably in a way that it comes naturally for you because you've been chasing your dream. Something that I think once you are chasing your dream, you're passionate about doing something, the remaining challenges and looking within and putting the hard work comes naturally. So now this is the point that I want to go to Miss Sandhya. Someone who had an initial passion of a medical field, and somehow in a very, winding path, you still seem to have gone back into the same biosciences field, now having your entry into the hospitals with very, very different portfolio of yours as the Frontier Medwell, like as part of that, as a founding member of that. So what made you, what was the motivation for you to come back and start that, and how it all happened?
Thank you. Like I said, my initial inspiration, having worked in or being in a family of doctors, both my dad and my mom, both are doctors, and so my general sort of feeling right from when I was a childhood was I wanted to be a doctor. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to because of, again, I think this is where male dominance, again, you can see it very clearly. My dad thought girls wouldn't be able to do a good job in the medical profession because he felt that you need to be 100% dedicated towards that particular profession. And being a girl, you will have to balance your family life and your profession. And he felt that, you wouldn't do justice to your profession. And therefore, please do not waste a seat which probably a well-deserving male candidate can have. And so, that's something that I learned early on, right from school, that, this is how men thought. That includes my dad. My dad is a very respected cardiac surgeon in the city, in India. But this is how even my dad thinks, that, women probably don't make as good doctors when compared to men. So anyways, I got into my engineering field, and then I, got into biomedical engineering because I wanted to get back into the medical line. and I went into clinical research and hospital administration, and so that's how I got into the hospital sector. Being there, working with my dad, and though he is the CEO of the organization, I do still find that, when there are certain views that, me as a woman, we present, he definitely doesn't, he's not open to your views. So if that happens with my own dad, I can imagine how it is for women who actually are struggling in organizations or trying to be women entrepreneurs. It's not easy. There are many times when I have found that, there are certain views I want to put forward, but then he would probably take up the inputs of a male counterpart. Or there are times when I have tried to use a male counterpart to put my views through to him, because I feel that maybe he would, I am outsourcing. So I think this is something that is dominant in our society, and even if we say that we are progressing, I don't think we are progressing enough. And I think we really need to see how, we need to make that change. And like Mr. Vinod had, mentioned earlier, I think that is a seed that needs to be implanted into the mind of the child, right, when they are toddlers. Seeing both the father and the mother work, there is no gender, disparity there. I think those kinds of things are things that need to be sown into the minds of the children right when they are young. So when you guys, start your families, or I don't know, many of you probably are already married, you need to make sure that those are things that are embedded in their minds right when they are kids. The other question about those are things that I have personally seen in my life, and like I said, I made this transition coming back to India a few years ago, and challenges that I've seen, not only being a woman, it's hard being in a male-dominated society where your views are not really taken very seriously, and it's hard. I mean, you really need to struggle to put it across and, get them to implement any of your views. But the other part that I really, another challenge that I face personally is that I am a widow. And, in this society, however, you say that we have progressed again, you are still considered to be a bad omen. There are times that I have, faced where my dad or my brother and family are invited to functions or, social gatherings, and you are alienated basically because you're a woman. So those are other challenges that I particularly face. I think I want, women to realize that you need to be strong. You need to, whatever be your circumstance, you need to come out of it. You need to be strong to face these kinds of, hurdles.
To probably extend from where Sandhya left, I think the art of selling your ideas, it's an art. You must be able to sell your ideas and convince people that you got a point and this is going to work. This is something that comes out of practice. It could be a male or a female whom you are dealing with. Once they see the point and it makes sense, particularly when it comes to in a business world, if it makes business sense, if you can prove that you added value, you can sell your ideas. And the art of selling ideas is something that, it's to do with body language, your verbal communication, your follow-up actions. Everything matters. When you look, basically you have to learn to look into the eyes of the person you are talking to and speak, and not make yourself look very dominant or submissive. And make sure that your idea sounds exciting and implementable and can lead to success. Art of selling your idea is the most important thing. Because this, you need, whether it is a personal or an official, whether you are convincing your child, no, this is not right for you, the child will say, no, you don't know, dad knows better. You are always wanting me to, be subdued to your ideas. No, make the child understand where the point is. And sometimes it could be even a deadlock negotiation. And then, have patience, wait for your turn. When things work the way you, or things did not work the way they challenged you, then you butt in again. Have patience to follow up and go till the end to convince people that you have ideas that are implementable and needed for the other person. Okay, this is something that I think it comes out of. We should never ever think that, it is nobody dominates you. Domination is a trait among animals. And we are a sort of, we also belong to the animal group in some way. So domination is the trait that everybody would like to. But if you have the right idea and if it is helpful to the other person, they will definitely listen to you. That doesn't mean that you are dominating that person. You are just sold your idea and you are making people see the sense. Sometimes you may be wrong, and you should also understand that, okay, let me just correct myself, go the other way. And it is all the communication. It is the ability to convince people, the ability to communicate, reach to the other person's sense.
Thanks a lot. Yes.
So earlier on, when Vijay and I were talking, I shared a story with her, and what Sandhya just shared made us both turn to each other and say, we need to talk about that. So, lest you have a myth that the United States is a very progressive culture, there are certain conversations that still exist about women that are very prevalent. And I was on a date a couple of years ago, and this man was asking about my background, and I've never been married and I don't have children by choice. And he actually said to me, "That's very suspicious, Jennifer." And I looked at him and I said, "Suspicious? Why is that suspicious?" So even in American culture, there is still, there's a whole wave of us who are in our early 40s and we haven't been married and we're unapologetically living our lives, and not everyone is okay with that and they don't really know what to do with it. So it is a very new conversation even in America. So compound that here, right, with these things and omens. And when you told me that, you were considered a bad omen, my heart just broke for you. And so it's a fairly universal conversation that we have to have. So it's in cultures that even seem to be very modern and progressive.
Thanks a lot. There is being fair to the actually minority in this crowd, Do you think some of the problems that we are talking about, having it all in the business, is so unique to women only? Art of selling is equally true for men. Even having networking and relationship and like managing time between, a networking relationship management is not a cup of tea for all men. I mean, it's not true that all men are naturally good at it or enjoy and do that as well. So some of these challenges, we've always seen that, or most of the pro challenges, there are something unique. I mean, definitely we need to ponder and find that out. The guilt of, having time, spending time on this versus that, and because the society expectations and managing that, and it's more like, it's not about empowering from outside, but empowering ourselves. There are some things that we have, heard anywhere, in every forum. But some of these challenges, like what we're talking about, having it all, be it a networking, relationship management, or some of the priorities, access to quality funding that was there in the write-up when we were shared. I mean, isn't it true that it is actually equally applicable for both men and women? So I just wanted you to share your last round of perspectives before we open it up for audience questions. Because I wanted to listen to actually Vijay's perspectives from this. Sometimes you feel that you go and speak to women entrepreneurs, what your problems are, what are your challenges. The challenges looks like 95% common as actually like any other men entrepreneur as well, then are we really trying to create a separate forum for women, and by doing that, are we doing justice? That's the question that I've been pondering over, so I wanted to open it up.
You know, I would like to take over from what you mentioned, ma'am, about, a male entrepreneur and a woman entrepreneur. Ultimately, they're both entrepreneurs. So prima facie, there really shouldn't be any difference between these two creatures, should I call them. But there is a huge difference. And I was mentioning this to Jennifer in the morning, that a recently concluded study on Indian women entrepreneurs, and at a fairly large sample size, and they conducted this out of Bangalore, and over 80% of the women entrepreneurs said that they face a struggle which is completely different from that faced by their male counterparts. And when you dig deeper, you find that a lot of it also has to do with themselves. And the answer to the first question was, what kind of a difference do you struggle with? They talked of gender bias, okay? They talked of being discriminated against by investors, by customers, a customer asking them, do you think you can run an industrial paints business? How can a woman do it? These are the kind of questions that a woman entrepreneur has to address. Similarly, she goes to an investor and she gets asked, no, but you're married and your husband is not a co-founder. What happens when you have a baby? These are the questions that women entrepreneurs have to encounter on one side. And while we mentor them to say that, look, this is not even a question that you should be looking at, say goodbye to that investor. On the other side, I find, and especially when I mentor women entrepreneurs, there are 2 or 3 areas I think where, as women, we tend to bring to the table certain traits which in a way are good, but in a way also set us back. And one of them is to do with risk-taking. As women, I think we don't take the risks enough. We don't look at it in totality. And that's why when Sandhya mentioned about, finances, that is so important. I think as women, we are so passionate. That's a positive. But we tend to run our own businesses like the way we manage our children, right? We want to keep everything to ourselves. We control everything. Money is good to come by. We'll manage it on our own. We bootstrap. We are very conservative in our finances. When it comes to looking out and getting a valuation and taking those risks, we are left far behind. That is one. The other area is in terms of confidence. I've had so many women entrepreneurs who are so good in their business telling me, oh my gosh, I've got to go and make this strategic presentation. I'm talking to a client in the US. It's my first foray abroad and I have butterflies in my stomach. It is this whole issue of confidence building. I think that is something we need to learn to address as women, that we are as good, if not better than men. Why do we have these butterflies in the stomach? We need to face the external world with a lot more confidence than we do today. I think we do it with our families, we do it with our children, we do it within our own organizations. But when it comes to dealing with external stakeholders, I find women are not confident enough. This is for me an area of concern, because I feel that if we were to do that, nothing can really stop us from getting funding, from getting customers, from building large businesses. Women entrepreneurs today are there everywhere. And it's not just in traditional business like handicrafts and, anything like that. I mean, we have people in education, we have people in healthcare. They're all doing great work, and in high technology areas as well. Nothing can stop us. But I think these are 2 areas for me, they keep coming up repeatedly. 1 in terms of taking risks, and 2 in terms of confidence building and saying that, well, I can do it. And somewhere I think if we were to handle those obstacles, we are home.
Very nicely summarized, it all boils down to confidence building. And I just wanted to kind of probe and put that question, saying that is it really different being a women entrepreneur? I know that she's been very passionately working in that field a lot. And yes, it is true that whatever that we talk about, yes, it's all the same, opportunities and so on. When it comes to how many of the startups are actually run, successfully found and scaled up by women. A lot of micro entrepreneurs, like ma'am talked about the flower vendors and so on, but how many of them have actually taken those loans and scaled it up? And what is that stopping them? The confidence levels, or is it the risk-taking, or the societal constraints? Yes, I think Vijay is not able to tempt having some more points to be added there.
Just one more. I just like to add one more point, and I think ma'am touched about it when she talked about the flower vendor. You know, I'm associated with a NGO called Association for Non-Traditional Employment for Women, where we train underprivileged girls and help them find employment. And you know, when we talk of empowerment, I find some of them, once they get trained, and they're going out there and getting simple jobs, it could even be a BPO, it's a data entry, simple data entry job. The way it empowers them, it is to be seen, to be believed. Because not only does that training and that placement, you know, make them financially independent, it actually brings in economic empowerment for the entire family. Because they go back, they come to us and say, ma'am, you've given us a 3-month data entry program. I've got this job, I'm earning 8,000 rupees a month, but I want to make my daughter an engineer or a doctor. You know, I don't want her to be doing what I'm doing. And for me, that is the true sense of empowerment and entrepreneurship, because they bring to the table that entrepreneurial thinking. And in fact, I wanted to mention this to Mr. Surana when he talked about entrepreneurship and empowerment. According to me, they are, you know, two sides of the same coin. You know, if a woman is empowered, she will make an excellent entrepreneur. And a woman who has an entrepreneurial bent of mind is empowered.
I think I'll just pass out the mic so that you can all add your last line of remarks before I would want some time to be reserved for the questions.
I just want to add on to your lines, ma'am. We have a small, research unit in a place called Gumudipundi, which is probably around 40-45 kilometers away from Chennai, our research unit. And it's in a rural setting. So we have quite a few of the women there. There was one of these times a few years ago when I just moved into the country, and I visited that particular unit. There was this one lady who came up to me and who was telling me about. She's one of the sweepers there, and she was telling me about her background and how she wanted a salary hike or whatever. And she told me about having she had a daughter and she had a son. And she said that she was going to educate the son, but the daughter was already in the 10th grade, and she felt that that was good enough. She didn't want to, spend any more on educating the girl. And I said that is absolutely wrong. I mean, you should be making sure that the girl is given equal rights to study, and, she needs to continue with her education. And she said, no, she cannot afford it. So in any case, we decided to take up around 6 of these girls who are like 10th grade, 12th grade passed out students, and they were going to stop their education. So we took them on and we taught them nanotechnology, how to spin these nanofibers. We're working on a particular research project about making valves, indigenous valves in the country. And we taught them how to, spin these nanofibers onto these valves. And so they started working in our research facility, and now we gave them good spoken English classes, and they started doing part-time courses, and now they've all completed their bachelor's degrees. They're all BSc students right now, and they have learned all of this nanotechnology and are all working. There are 6 of them that were chosen. And all these 6 are now role models in their villages. They all have their little TVS mopeds or whatever they are called, and scooties and things like that, and dress so professionally, and they've actually transformed themselves, and they are absolute role models in their own villages. And I completely agree with you. If you teach them, if you empower them, then they are changing that entire family and their own communities. And I think that is something that each of us need to look into and see how we can all contribute in some way or the other in trying and teaching and empowering these girls and women. Thank you.
Yeah, both Vijay and Sandhya have just emphasized how, given the background or given that mentoring, support and things like that, women can do well. That's a wonderful thing. And to sign off my thing, I would like to just say that the kind of things that you require to become a successful entrepreneur are the creative thinking, organizing capability, wanting to be financially independent, and have that eye or that greed for profit. Okay, thank you.
Beautifully said.
I think something that becomes apparent, so when we talk about empowerment, it sounds like this very macro concept, that we're supposed to create in the world. But in reality, what it comes down to is the singular conversations. One young woman. And it's really in the actions that we take on a daily basis that make the difference. So, in the realm of entrepreneurship, it's introducing a woman to a potential investor. It's offering to look at her business plan and helping her refine her pitch. It's having her become a better business owner. So it's really in those individual conversations that empowerment happens. It's not this magical fairy dust that comes down and sort of blesses everyone. And I think when we really get that, when we understand that the greatest gift is that when we are empowered, if we can give that away to somebody else and we can ignite it in someone else, that's really how we change the world.
I really agree with Jennifer on this, and I think this is really, it's a global narrative. It's not just applicable in the US or in India, or, I think that whole concept of giving back one woman at a time, and I think this is something that the UN Women also has in their agenda. So this is something I think each one of us, even that little bit if we can do, I think we'd all rest in peace.
Shall we open, any questions from the audience to the panel? You can actually, do you have a mic? I see a mic here, but you can also pass this one. Yes, yeah, there is one. You also. Yes, yeah, I can talk like that, it's fine. Yes.
Okay, actually I come, after looking at all of you, ma'am, you're really strong, I would like to tell that. But I come from a family background where my parents are very conservative. And knowing that, I have applied for Goldman Sachs. I took a lot of courage to apply and write the test. But I know that even though I get in, I won't be able to go to Bangalore because of the restrictions that I have, family restrictions and limited mobility, as you told. So my question is, even though I tried convincing my dad that I would be able to go, there is a society behind which keeps telling them that no, she's a girl, she goes there, this will happen, that will happen and everything, and they change their mind just like 5 minutes. How would you change the society's thinking about women entrepreneurship, like the male-dominated society, probably?
Do you want this question to be answered by any particular one? Anyone?
It is only education that can change the society. More women coming up into education, getting educated, becoming career women. Supposing your mother is a career woman, she would definitely. Let me repeat, it is education that will change the society, nothing else. Only education, women's education, because educate a woman and she can make a big influence on the family. And supposing your mother is a career woman. Is your mother a career woman?
No, she's a housewife.
If she were to be a career woman, she would definitely influence your father, telling, no, my daughter has got her career, let's go ahead with it. No, it is education. It will take some time, but I think only through education you can realize such empowered society.
Thank you.
Firstly, I would love to invite you to be part of the Concordia Project Global Think Tank, because I think you'll find support there. And the reason I say that is because this has come up in other countries, right? So there's a young woman from Mexico who said she wants to be the future president of Mexico. And I believe her. She's this wonderful, extraordinary young woman. And she said, but my family, traditional values in my family are making this very difficult, this conversation. And then another young woman in Nepal said, I'm coming up against the same thing. I want to go out and create things in the world. My family the traditional values are holding me back. So I think what we saw in that conversation in the think tank was that all the young women rallied around and said, so we need to create better conversations with the men in our family. We need to find a way to have them understand why this is important. So there's not an easy answer to your question, but I think there is a conversation we need to create with men that is enrolling, that has them understand why this is a good thing, that we're not threatening any kind of traditional family values by doing so. And so it's really in that area where we have to look and create support for people like you.
I'd just like to add a small thing, that there is something that you can do as well. If it's not the Goldman Sachs project, look at, I mean, she invited you to this project. I mean, you know, there would be other opportunities for you to look at. Maybe you need to also prove yourself a little bit so your dad gets, and everybody at home gets convinced that you can do it. Maybe that's a short-term thing to do, but then it'll, you know, propel you into doing something much bigger later.
Think like an entrepreneur.
For the next question, I just wanted to answer one thing. You don't change the society, you change one person at a time, and it can be starting with your dad. I did convince my dad actually to move to Kharagpur from Chennai, so probably I can take the discussions offline for you. As I said, like, he was very particular about me getting into academics because of safety reasons. She exactly was pointing out, probably, like, you know, with one Uber incident, you can go for a toss, you can go for a battle at your home.
Good afternoon, panelists. My name is Elizabeth. I'm an entrepreneur and part-time student, which puts me in close proximity with a lot of other students at a very good management school. Now, just to put context to my question, Indian educational institutions have this concept called placements. For Madam Jennifer's benefits, these are like assured jobs, provided you have like a C+ CGPA, so on and so forth. Assured jobs, so you actually get, yes, you get right into the industry. Now, in countries like US and Australia, they don't quite have this assured job. Yes, they have, you know, job fairs and industry, you know, networking sessions, but there's nothing assured about it. So, and interestingly, these countries are also, they rank very high in all the ranks of, you know, churning out entrepreneurs, both women and males. So my question is, do you think, especially considering entrepreneurship and startup initiatives for women, do you think that placements is sort of a safe bet, or do you think it actually helps them in their entrepreneurial journey at some point?
You know, I would go back to what I told you earlier, which is in terms of aspirations. What is it that you're looking for? If at this point of time something like money is important to you and you need an income, then maybe go in for a placement. But if you think you have an idea which is burning inside you and you want to go there and do it, and money at this point of time can take a, you know, a back seat, because as an entrepreneur you'll probably have to burn your own cash or, you know, not settle for a regular income. If you think you can manage that, then go ahead and be an entrepreneur. I mean, there are a lot of college kids today. In fact, the latest, you know, Global Entrepreneurship Index says that India is moving up in this whole chain, and, you know, we are doing very well. And there are no specific statistics on women entrepreneurs, but if you look at it in terms of colleges, there are a lot more girls who are coming forward today, and, you know, I'm sure from Rajalakshmi they would have had the same experience, that a lot more girl students are coming forward and saying no to placement and saying yes to entrepreneurship. So it depends on, it's a choice that you need to make depending on the kind of commitments that you have.
Can I? I would like to just add one thing. Getting placed is nothing wrong. Having little work experience is also beneficial to becoming an entrepreneur.
I just wanted to give a few tips to the young upcoming women entrepreneurs here. You should all know this. After being an entrepreneur, I mean, leather industry for 15 years and getting the local state board award and the Indira Gandhi Priyadarshini award, national award, and the global leadership award in Washington. After the WTC hit, I had to close down my factory because all my past, present, and future, the whole stock was held up in New York. 11th of September this happened, and 16th of September I had to fly to New York. Coming from a traditional Orthodox Chetia family, nobody approved me going to New York at that point of a time. I had 3 children at home, and my husband is a very promising engineer. He was a government gazetted officer, and he couldn't accompany me. But still, I came back after after being in the industry for 12 years. I just said, I am going to shut down my factory. In fact, at that point of time, my banker said, why you want to shut down when you have received so many awards? you can still continue, you can take further loans, you have very good repayment track. But again, it's a choice. I had 3 daughters. The elder 2 had got their scholarships to study in Singapore. So you have to make a choice. So I had taken a home in Singapore. They had 85% tuition grant by the government of Singapore to study, but boarding and lodging was expensive. So I took various other assignments, and basically I was an artist. So that's the time I thought I should be an artist now. And I had exclusive art shows in Singapore, in New York, in Washington, in many places. I still continue to do my art shows. And I'm a mentor for Bharat Yuva Shakti Trust. I would proudly say to all the girls here, being a mentor for 16 years in Bharat Yuva Shakti Trust, the women entrepreneurs, they have a record of 100% repayment. I think that point you should stress, you must tell your parents to come and talk to these women entrepreneurs. You must tell your parents to talk to all these women entrepreneurs. I tell you, a lady from a remote village in Andhra Pradesh in Kodadu, she's opened an office in Calcutta and she's exporting rice to Bhutan. Can anybody think of this? When you say about exports, everybody wants to do only to US, Europe or Australia. Just explore new areas. In fact, I had a wonderful opportunity to do a business in Botswana, but my father and father-in-law said, you are not going to Africa. There was, then Goldman Sachs program, they called me when I was 42. I was the first cohort Goldman Sachs ISB program. Because I was in the art industry, you can't quantify art. You can never quantify art. I am an artist. My husband used to say, with due respects to all the artists here, a horse drawn like a donkey can fetch you 1 crore. That is you never quantify art. It's only the name, and there is no quantity. How do you quantify art? So I got into this Goldman Sachs program just to have more information on that. And they couldn't allot a mentor for me. I think Vijay Lakshmi Madam, Mrs. Vijay knows, Dr. Vijay knows that. They couldn't allot a mentor. Finally, now I am mentoring other artists. So you have to break your way. You have to keep doing a lot of studies. And you know who my first client was to buy my huge Ganesha painting? It was a guy from Israel. So he has put it in his office and he has sent me a photograph. So now I have clients in Bhutan, in Israel, in Turkey, of course in the US. See, the thing is, you have to keep searching. You must have the fire in the belly. And I am so proud, all my 3 daughters are educated. All of them studied in a tuition grant in Singapore. They went all around the world. And they also felt that when I said don't migrate to US or don't migrate to Australia, they didn't listen to me. They went around and then they said, Mommy, Singapore is the best place for us to be. So they all came back. They sold their house in Singapore, went to Sydney, bought a house there, again sold that house, and she has come back now. So the value systems, because my daughter has 2 girl babies. And she said, I'm not going to bring them up in Australia. I'm going to come back to Singapore. I said, welcome back home anytime. So one day I think they will all return back to India. All of them are in Singapore now. But what I'm trying to tell you is go and explore the world. I just came back from Bhutan 2 days earlier with Andhra Chamber of Commerce. We had been on a trade delegation to Bhutan. There we were so surprised. There is so much of scope, but things take some time. You just need to push. You have to keep pushing. And the decisions you make, once you make a decision, stick on to it and just go ahead. All the young girls here, this is what I would like to tell you. So having a mentor for you like Tangam Meghanathan and the panelist here, Ms. Vijay. So you have got wonderful people in India, and Chennai is a wonderful place to be. You get a lot of mentors. Take help. Everybody is there to, help out the young entrepreneurs here. So make a study. Tell your parents, go and see the list of BYST. Women are 100% repaying people. There is a list of non-performance assets, and that is only the men who are non-performing assets. With due respect to all the men here, I am not trying to complain, but this is the reality. That's what I wanted to tell you. Since you are all young, I want you to catch hold of this particular point. Thank you so much.
Thanks for that inspiration.
First of all, I just want to say that I'm very glad that I took a few hours off work to be here. It's been lovely. So I'm a second generation entrepreneur. I work with my father. He started the company about 10 years back, and we work predominantly in the tech field. And as an engineer myself, and a lover of science and all things progressive, I've traveled along with him for a lot of tech seminars in our industry, and it's been very shocking to see that it's completely male dominant. And even when I entered after my engineering, which I have a work experience of 5 years now, when I entered about 5 years back, most of our hardware integrators and software engineers were all male. And only the administrative and the accountants were women. And and I kind of pointed this out to my father when we traveled all across the globe. And we kind of saw the same trend, be it like in London or in San Francisco, that it was definitely the seminars and the conferences definitely had more male engineers than women engineers. In fact, shockingly, India churns out the most number of female engineers. So I told him, I said, see, we need to do something about this. And let's take it up as an initiative and bring in more female programmers and developers. So my question, which I will put forth, actually stemmed from Vijay ma'am's observation that she made during her recruitment at IIM, when somebody asks you, will you be working in the future? So as a good initiative, we started recruiting BSc graduates in electronics, because that's the field that we come from. And all these girls are very enthusiastic to join us when they're about 23. And we're very happy to have them on board. They have a keen enthusiasm to learn, to grow, to get global exposure, which is what we promise them that we provide. But we always find that after they get engaged, which is through arranged marriage, they say that we can't come back to work anymore. And they are either relocated or the mother-in-laws or the father-in-laws or even their parents say that, no, now that you're married, you don't need the income. You don't need the income, you don't need to go back to work. And so we have found, and this is practical statistics, that at least 5 in every 8 women we employ leave the job within 2-3 years. So we have found, my father has found himself in a very sensitive position of asking the question during recruitment that even after you get married, A, do you plan on getting married? Most of them say yes, like it's a rule. And B, do you plan on working, like do you plan, irrespective of what they tell you, do you plan? Most of them say, no, I will have to take into consideration. And there are some women who do say, yeah, you know what, no matter what, I will be here. Because I don't think it's right on us as a small-scale company to ask them to sign a bond saying that, whatever, irrespective of your marital status, you're going to have to stay. Like what of the big MNCs do. We don't expect commitment, but then we need to know that, yeah, we're going to give you this, but then we also want you to stay because this is helpful for us and helpful for you. So if anybody can tell me that, and I sit in the recruitments as well. Obviously, I only have second power to my father, who's very open to my inputs as well, but I can't dictate anything yet. So something to take forward to, especially with women who come from, and most of our recruits are all from the rural areas, they're from villages who come to WCC, Stella to study, but they're based in villages. So any help, any inputs through especially with recruitment, to sort of ensure that girls will stay on. I know it's very dicey, but because I personally want to increase employment in tech for women. And I don't mean just software engineering, we have plenty of those. But electronics, nanotechnology, which is what we do, and any help whatsoever.
What's your name?
Kripa, ma'am.
Okay, Kripa, I'd like to first commend this whole initiative of yours of, saying that I will take in more women. It's a very bold step, and I'm really glad that you're on the right footing. Yes, this is an issue, and we recognize it. Okay. In fact, this forum that I'm a part of, called Empowering Women in IT, we essentially look at, 1, how to increase the share of women, and 2, also help them sustain their careers. Now, on the positive side, I don't know if this has been your experience, but you will find on a like-to-like basis, if you put women in these kind of jobs, they actually excel. You know, the IT industry, and especially the kind of roles that you talked about, and the kind of skill sets that women have, completely match with each other, right? And I think this is there in the US as well, and therefore they have this whole initiative of encouraging women to come into STEM, right? So this is a great initiative, but yes, I know that especially when it comes to women from the rural areas or second or third tier cities, they will want to get married and go away. But I think there are two ways of handling this. One is you need to sensitize them enough that they realize the value of the job that they are doing and sustain their interest in that career. And in my own company, I found that when we ran those sessions and they were part counseling, many of them would actually take a call that I will get married to somebody in Chennai itself and continue my job, right? I think you need to go that little extra mile when you're, doing so much for women, do that little bit more. Two, organizationally, I understand you have a problem. So the only way to deal with it is maybe institutionalize processes, make sure that if you know that there's a certain girl who is likely to leave, make sure that she's trained enough, she gets a job elsewhere. I mean, I would sometimes take the effort to even outplace them somewhere else because I can't bear the thought of that girl giving up her career completely. Why not help her find a job in Karaikudi? Why not, right? At the same time, institute your processes so that that girl is in turn able to hand over to another girl, right? And the process of empowerment within your organization continues. I think these are the only two ways to handle it. But you're onto something really good, keep it going. I can see Vani raising her hand. If anybody else wants to add something on this based on experience, we'd be happy to hear.
Hi, I'm Sumati. I just want to add on and give some inputs. I'm a chartered accountant basically. I'm now practicing as a management consultant. I could relate to what Vijay ma'am said. When I went for my first job interview, the question asked of me is, you'll get married and leave. Why should I recruit you? This guy asked me this question and the way I answered, I got named as firebrand. Even today people keep asking. I said, fine. I may get married 2 years down the line. I may leave. But do you mean to say you're not going to leave? Are you going to stay there? That's the question we should have in mind. Why do we say that women get married after 2 years or after 3 years or 1 year down the line? What's the guarantee guys will continue to stay with us? Have that in mind. Having faced that, I myself had to ask those questions to people who came to work for me. So I have that experience also. I empathized with them. So when I ask that, I ensure they do not feel that it's a question asked to them specifically because they are women. I ask them saying, see, you are working. I just want to help you out. What is it that you want to do? And to add on to what Vijay ma'am said, prepare yourself. Ensure, okay, for 2 years they'll be there. I'll train them. Let them improve in career. I'll have replacements ready for them. So plan for not having them for more than 2 years or 3 years. And you'll be prepared for that. You'll get me.
I actually would like to give you another Another thing that you can do is there are a lot of women, because of marriage and childbirth have left the workplace and they are wanting to come back. Okay? Tap them. Yeah, tap them. We've been running a project called Vapas, that is return to work, okay? And through that, I have now hired for one of my clients 3 senior women, okay? And we have placed, Kalyani and I have placed another senior woman in another company. They still want to work, okay? Tap that. There is a huge section there, okay? They've gone past marriage and they've gone past the childbirth and they want to come back to work. You want help from us, just we'll talk offline and, we'll help you get there. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Srividya Raman and I come from my own company, Twameva Business Solutions. The question that I have is, as I'm listening to all of you, is that we have many successful career women here and I'm sure all of us will nod our head to say it's because of the logistics support that we had from the family, either from the mother, mother-in-law, aunt, uncles, and so on and so forth. So the question that I want to leave each and every one of us is, when we were hearing Sandhya talk about women and things like that, very often it is a woman behind there who's doing this. So what is it that we are going to do as young people right now in this generation? A food for thought is, can we leave a positive impact on another woman that we deal with? That's a question, and that's a thought that I want to leave each and every one of you. And the question that I want to ask you is that very often we are dealing with an other generation woman. Like in her case, her mom. In your case, your mom was a doctor, was a career woman, who was servicing. Still, you found it difficult. I'm sure many of us here face hurdles from our own gender. What are we going to do for that? What is it that we have?
So it's really interesting you bring up the intergenerational issue because, you know, in the world today, in the workforce, we have 3 generations of women. And what's really interesting is that each generation has its own conversation and its own occurrence of how the world of work looks for women, right? So if we have sort of the second wave of feminism, let's just say, these are women who have pioneered their way in their industries, they've claimed their seat at the table, they've earned their place. And then there's the next generation, which is sort of my generation, where when we came into the workforce, there was really not a conversation about men versus women. We kind of just did it. And then you have the millennial generation, where there's all kinds of different contexts. And so what's happening is it's like the Tower of Babel, where everyone is having their own version of the conversation. And I think one of the things we need to do is get on the same page and look at acknowledging the generations that have come before and pioneered these paths for us, but also look at how we carry that conversation to younger women who, in the US, there are some young women who say, well, there are no problems. What are you talking about? We're all equal already. So they don't have the experience of those other generations. So I think it's really critical that we have one conversation about it.
Very beautifully said. You know, there is actually a generation gap as well that's coming along with some of these norms, like rightly pointed out Srividya. Many times you see another woman behind all these. But if you actually understand, it comes, the root of that is their own fear and lack of confidence. And I agree with ma'am's point of art of selling. You know, I think it's true for both the men and women, and all successful. I'm sure that Vijay would also. And if you are very successful in both in your family and in work, I mean, we have to actually attribute the equal credit to our partners as well in that, in balancing that. Okay, to remove those fears from the older generations, or whoever is putting those constraints one by one in a way that it doesn't actually offend them. Because their intent, if you look at it, it has always been good, the safety aspects or whatever it is. The intent had always been good, but it comes by way of overprotection. And sometimes, yes, it's also like wrongly positioned societal route, you know, certain things is like a bad omen. And I mean, again, that it's a fear of something, fear of some unknown for whatever reason. But if you actually articulate them, and I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do, but an art of selling that you need to do at a different levels for different age groups. And probably we all women actually have a more important role that we can easily influence our younger generation, our own sons and son-in-laws and daughters and younger brothers and so on. That's at least a lot easier to do, for that the next generation is actually at least in a safer hands and we don't face those kind of questions. But our older generation, yes, there is a generation gap, we completely agree. But I still believe that it is possible to influence, but it is a way of selling or way of articulating to them. We also have to mend our methods, so to say.
Thank you.
I just want to thank the panel because it was really, really interesting listening to all of you. And I want to share a part of my life with these youngsters out here. I came from a similar family, and my mother had been pulled out of 9th grade or 8th grade and got married off. My father was at that time Deputy Commissioner of Chikmagalur district. Despite having come out of school, she still learned all her life. And she was a great role model to all of us. She had a lot of children. But after coming out of it, she made sure that all the girls in the family studied. My elder sister was married off at 18 years. She spoke to the in-laws and got the Mount Carmel bus go next to her house so that the in-laws would permit her to go to college, and she became a graduate too. So even after marriage, she encouraged that. And when I finished my BSc, I very much wanted to study further and do my MSc. I got the Child Development MSc in Mysore. And two of the things that were told to me was she had promised my father that she will never come to the mandap for my wedding if I was not a graduate. So she had pulled on from 17 years to 22 years. She had allowed me to study. And when I got this seat, she said, I'm really sorry, I can't handle your dad anymore. He will not allow this for 2 more years. So I said, okay, and I accepted it, and I spent one of the best time of my life with my parents at that time. They never allowed me to work or study further. But surprisingly, just a few days before my marriage, my mother called me and she said, you know something? Marriage is not a limitation. It is freedom depending on how you develop yourself and how you manage your own life. So I had to wait, and my focus was very clear that I wanted to study further. I never got an opportunity to do an MSc or something like that, but I could do a special education 1-year course, a diploma with Vidyasagar, and got onto a career 13 years after my marriage. And then I started a company, and I'm very happy that my company has run now for 21 years. We are into social work. We are doing a lot of work with children and all that. So I think it requires a lot of patience, focus, and perseverance. And when the opportunity came, I was lucky that my husband didn't come in between. He just supported me, and he said, look, I've just started my own unit. So I don't know if I can help you if you have project work or you have something else to do with the course, but I'll pay your fees, I'll give you a car, manage the children, do what you like. You need more maids, you need help, outsource, but I can't sit with you on any project. I said, that's fine. We had a clear dealing with that. And that 1 year, I think I've slept hardly 2 hours a day. But I completed it with pretty decent marks, and I just took off from there. I'm ever grateful to Vidyasagar for that wonderful course they provided me. And I just want to share it with all of them that marriage need not be a limitation. It has to be from what you want to become. That is one thing. And the second thing I wanted to share is, we're all talking here as if, you know, many of the panelists said that this gender bias is worldwide. There was a research done more than 25 years ago on Canadian women. And these women were so stuck to the house because they had to look after the children and bring them up. And what they started demanding was, they all got together and demanded of their husbands that they get paid for cooking for them, washing their clothes, and for breastfeeding the child. You see, they started demanding that. So then the women empowerment thing started happening better in that community after this requirement was brought up by these women. So it has been there, I think, over generations. And I think this is the generation that's going to change it all. So thank you so much. And a great applause to Sandhya. Thank you so much. It's very difficult to express what you did on stage, Sandhya. Thank you very much for sharing. It was really deep and wonderful. Thank you so much.
Good morning, and thank you so much for organizing this program, because it's been really enlightening to hear that we all have similar problems and it's not only all of us in our individual worlds. I have a very simple question. I'm a Fulbright scholar and I've worked in the arts sector mainly. And I've been in the US and I've lived in Southeast Asia and in India. And there's one problem that I encounter on a very regular basis, and I'd like to know how you handle it, because we all handle it in different ways. One is men interrupting women in conversations and conferences and discussions, and mansplaining. I'm not going to mansplain what mansplaining is now, but I'm sure all of you know. And this is something I'm sure we all encounter, and I just don't know how to deal with it after a point, because I'm so tired of dealing with it. So I just give up now, and I really want to know how you handled it 20 years ago, 10 years ago, yesterday, today, tomorrow.
Okay. So
I call them on it. So if a man interrupts me, I will just say, excuse me, I request you let me finish, and then I say what I have to say. Or after they're done, I will say, thank you, I already know all of that, and let me actually give you my answer. So I think, but I don't think they're doing it necessarily consciously. And a lot of times they're just trying to be helpful. So I think it's important to check your lens, like, are they really interrupting? What is happening right now? Just give them a second, and then just address it, because a lot of the time they'll put themselves in check. And I remember this discussion has come up with men. I was on a panel about empowering men to empower women. And we were trying to figure out how to have this conversation because the only man in the room was the moderator. And I said, well, I'm not really sure how we're going to do this. So I went on Facebook and I said, gentlemen, how can we empower you in this scenario? And it took a few minutes. Nobody said a word for about 15 minutes. But then one brave friend of mine came out and said, you know, I really want to be helpful, but I'm tired of getting yelled at. And it was in that moment. And then all of these men shared. And so I think I don't know that it's necessarily that mansplaining is an intentional thing. I think it's a communication style. And so if we just interrupt the pattern, I think we can change how the conversation goes. Would you agree? Yeah. Anyone?
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Azad from Anna University. We have a Center for Entrepreneurship. So we nurture students from second year onwards on how to be entrepreneurs. We conduct programs and other things. One of the things what we do is we have allotted some land for the students. They have to take it as contract. It's a practice for them. So they grow organic things and they can sell it and maintain account. They have to settle the account. So for 2 years, they take it as a contract, and then they are trained to do that in a very small level. So I would like to ask the panelists the same thing. You know, a lot of women must be trying to become entrepreneurs, but they do not receive sufficient training, especially those who complete schools, girls, or those who finish colleges. And different people will have different interests, say textile, sales, or stitching, food preparation, IT, and other things. So I'm just thinking here that there could be a facility, a complex where their food can be prepared like that. Corporations have certain centers in Delhi and all that. They have certain areas where some food is available. There is a photocopying shop. There is a sales, everything like that. If somebody can create something like that, since they will be together, they will feel safe also instead of a separate building. Different kind of entrepreneurship. What do you think about it?
So I'm from Anna University as well, and so I'm happy to have this discussion with you. I think it's an excellent idea. I don't think any of us in the older generation, had that opportunity, and I think that's an excellent idea for the present generation. We did have in our engineering, in the 4th year, we did have like a thesis that we had to submit. And I think you could probably have a similar sort of thing done in the, the last year of their curriculum to have a program like this. And I think it's a very good idea if, I'm sure like all of you could also maybe help in this venture in constructing this particular building. I don't know, is it being constructed by the university or is it something that you are...
No, at present in some universities they have a building for startup. In Canada, Ryerson University, I saw it. They have a huge building where different, every table is one entrepreneur. They share the computers, all these things. They do some service, IT service. Another place, somebody is developing a game. In this place, somebody is developing an app. So that they don't have the burden of having to hire a place. This is almost free, except some charges. And what happens, some are successful, some are failures. What happens, these people become employees of the successful companies.
Yes.
They collaborate with them. What I am saying is that, to give an example, my wife is a doctor. The saree she wears is always last year's fashion, not this year. Because when you buy a saree, you cannot wear it immediately. You have to take it, you forget it for 2 months, then you take it for the saree fall. You have to get a matching fall. After 2 months, you have to go for a matching blouse. Okay, then you go to the tailor, he says it is Diwali period, come after some time. So by the time it is stitched, it's 1 year. Okay, but I used to wonder, why don't you have places where you have all colors, from light green to dark green, light blue to dark blue, all these things, where somebody can come, select this, the different pieces, give it to a tailor and get it stitched within 1 week, right? On the other side, if you go to hotels, suppose 1 week somebody has gone out, 2 days you can eat in a hotel, 3rd day you cannot eat. Because you are tired, because homely food is not available. So what I'm saying is that put one place for entrepreneurship. Maybe the corporation, government can do, like Amma Canteen and all that. Or it can be part of a university. University needs a lot of servicing. You need people for typing, binding, so many work. So there should be a facility for entrepreneurship, especially for the women who want to start, beginning. Initially it will be like going to work. Yes, yes.
Like for example, IIT Research Park is one such thing that where it's kind of a complete ecosystems. There are like that. I mean, both in academia institutes and as well as in some of the places where successful startup companies also provide their own space to be that ecosystem. I know about PayPal doing that and so on. So there are a lot of models at which you can emulate. Sir. It's nonetheless is like nevertheless is actually a good.
Yeah, we have an entrepreneurship cell where the students are running their own cafeteria, the Xerox center, and things. And also at a certain period of time, I think they also hire out the space for the nearby weavers who come and display their things, and there are a lot of enterprising activity happening. And it's a good idea. And also, I think there are things like Move and I don't know the expansion. They have exhibitions and they have space for, they do a lot of things for women entrepreneurs and TIE and things like that.
And thanks a lot to all of you. I think definitely we had it all. I would say that, all kind of conversations, opening up from our own personal life experiences and very good, I would say, cookbook and recipes of what to do and what not to do. Like the guilt feeling to get away and prioritization, the key. Bouncing back is important, and relationship and networking is very important for that. And more importantly, chasing your own dream. Ma'am talked it from a personal experience, like what you want to do and set your eyes on. It should be very clear on that. The purpose of our life is, achieving that is in our hands, and influencing from elder generation, both the women to men, and like giving opportunities for women in a workforce, and be constrained by asking the nasty questions of would you continue, and what other better ways of asking that. There was an answer, an idea from that. A lot of personal experience that I think Sandhya opened up, others also to open up, come back and say, how did I actually overcome such and such situations and so on. And finally summing it up with coming and giving an ecosystem of opportunities, and is almost making it open, like is there anybody ready to take a venture time. So I think this is the right time. Now we can venture into our lunch. Okay. A food for thought, enough of it. I think we had it all. Now it's time for food for stomach. And again, once again, we all thank Sucham for organizing this event and providing a platform for people to come out and talk about it. Having conversations is a first step, and I think we are on the right way, that path. Thank you all.